Alright, so this is going to be my DNFs of 2021. I read 69 books, not on purpose, but I also adopted some very good advice that if I'm not enjoying a book, I'll put it down. So just a disclaimer, just because I DNF'd a book doesn't mean I won't ever pick it up again. It's just in the moment, I didn't want to read it. So I think I have a lot. There's like 23 of these, so I better get started. And I took snapshots, oh crap, of the notes, and because I can't have my laptop on, the fan's too loud, so let's begin. Oh, crap. Alright, let's begin. Sandlin Ascends. I got about 30 pages in, just couldn't get into it. There had a lot of backstory with him and his wife, and something happens to her, and he's got to find her, but I didn't really dig. I just couldn't get into it. The next one's Hex by Thomas Oldhuvelt. 100 pages in. Overly elaborate in setting up the plot and too many characters. This was on a list of like best lesser known horror books by Bookstore, and I checked out some of them. Some of them were okay, but this one was not. No Feck Gloss. This is a sci-fi book. I got about 50 pages in. 3 large coincidences happened in the opening scene, and it really bothered me, so I just put it down. Got about 100 pages in there. No, what the Killing Lessons, 117 pages. So this is a story about 2 vicious killers who assault a family living in an isolated area. One daughter escapes and hangs out with a physically incapable neighbor, while an alcoholic detective really far away deals with other stuff. There's a lot of pretentious usage of the term death of love in terms of her miscarriage. Lots of cliches make this one a no-go. I only wanted to read this book because the sequel has like a female Hannibal Lecter plot, which sounded pretty cool, but I guess I will not get to that. I'm going to get flamed for this one, but Pier and Andessie, 50 pages in, it was too repetitive. I put it down, I'm sorry. I might try this one again because it's short, but whatever. Legend Born, 120 pages. It's too similar to the Mortal Instruments. I got the nerdy best friend, the hot person from another world, vague monsters, 2 monster killers who don't like her at first, like Alex and Izzy, vague villain. I just couldn't get into it. It's just too similar about how people cannot see it and everything. It's very similar, yeah, it is. I just didn't like it. All right, Children of God. This one is the sequel to The Sparrow, Mary Doria Russell. Should probably remember to write down the names of the authors. But anyways, Children of God, yeah. So about halfway through. Oh wow, 150 pages. I couldn't get interested in the book. It was too slow to get going. It kept jumping back and forth between the plot lines. It didn't have the same dynamic cast as the first book, obviously. So, next one. If Then by Kate Hope Day. This was the sci-fi book about 4 different perspectives around the end of the world, I think. So I got about 116 pages. It's 4 people who experience visions of alternate versions of their own life. So I was wrong. It's too boring. There's a lot of character work, but not enough plot. It's very similar to that Michael Shannon movie, Take Shelter. The Grace Year, forget the author's name, 16 pages in. I thought they had cool powers, but they just have pheromone powers, so I wasn't in. Yeah, this was described as like a Hunger Games, but with women only, and they have powers, but it's seduction powers, and yeah. Audio Steve here. I missed one called The Long Drop by Denise Mina, 88 pages in. I was recommended this book by a list of great crime reads from the last 10 years, but it was boring and overly Scottish, and I couldn't mentally cast everyone because a lot of excessive descriptions of all the characters, and it moved way too slowly. Goldilocks. Oh yeah, this is I saw this one on the shelf of a bookstore. Got about 117 pages into it. Concept of this book is supposed to be The Martian meets A Handmaid's Tale. The Handmaid's Tale. Except the dystopian part feels too similar to Interstellar, and the Handmaid's Tale part isn't as developed as the sci-fi stuff. The plot to steal the ship was made contrived by a futuristic society that hates women, but never explains why or cares to elaborate why. It's the equivalent of in future women no-go space, woman bad, and it feels kind of cheap. I was going to try and stick with it, but they keep dropping back and forth into flashbacks and alternate chapters, and the ones in the past really drag it down, so I wasn't into it. Victories Greater Than Death, 55 pages, and this was Charlie Anders. This is the first book I've read by the author. The concept of a cloned hero in space is cool, but they had an obnoxious pronoun thing, because like aliens would also offer their pronouns, and the story felt kind of forced to be tongue-in-cheek, and I didn't like that. You know, I like hard sci-fi. I don't like cheeky alien sci-fi. Ooh, okay, Security by Gina Walsdorf. I got about 50 pages. This is described as a slasher book, so I really wanted to read this one. The main character is a manager of a new bougie hotel being set up. She gets cut in the lobby by a frantic French chef who is upset that the dishwasher was broken. First off, professional chefs in any capacity are always careful with their knives. They don't leave the kitchen with them and wave them around to people in the lobby. Secondly, Henry, the chef, is a walking stereotype. A French chef who says "Mon Dieu" or "Sacre bleu" every 5 seconds. Now, I actually, I've worked in a kitchen, so I know that chefs don't act like that, but the fact that the author didn't do enough research about this is kind of telling. You know, you could have come up with something else. Yeah, the cliches were eye-rolling every 5 seconds. Every page he was saying something weird. Their perspectives change on the same page just by paragraph for jarring pacing. Makes it very choppy, as well as a cold style of prose in which the author says, like, Melanie did this, Melanie did that, Melanie was in prison. Lots of info dubbing and character info shoved in without any real rhyme or reason. So even though it was a slasher book, I like slasher movies, this one just didn't sit well with me. The Maidens by Alex Michaelides, 32 pages in, boring. The book has a solid multiple perspectives ready to go, but very short chapters to make it feel like whiplash, and too much backstory. Too boring. The Ninja Daughter, 40 pages in. Starts off pretty good. It's a modern-day ninja vigilante story about a woman who helps out victims of abuse. Then we get a very cliched flashback with vague details. For example, she gets GHB in her drink, but she manages to fight it off. You have to do some basic research because that's not how it works. And the heroine of the story is drugged in a flashback, but manages to fight off her attempted rapist, who also happens to be her sister's killer. And then it never explains how she got away and what happened. So I put the book down at that moment because it just didn't really just didn't explain it. Let's see, The Comfort Book by Matt Haig, 20 pages in. This is just like it's just like a diary of sorts. It's just a collection of thoughts, sometimes recipes, lists of songs. I prefer Matt Haig's fiction, so that's why. Couldn't put this one down. The Retreat by Elizabeth de Mariafi, 100 to 125-ish pages. The book had nothing really happen in it. Good atmosphere and setup, very similar to One by One, or An Unwanted Guest. But out of a 325-page book, nothing happens after 100 pages, so I gave up. Storm knocks out the power at about... crap, it cut off. Okay, so yeah, that one it took too long to get started. I love isolated thrillers, but... didn't make it. Okay, Pieces of Her, 178 pages. I really wanted to read this Karen Slaughter novel, but it started off really strong, but then the first flashback just killed it. What did I say? It's a 600-page book, so I decided to audiobook it. I started a new job, which requires a bus commute. I was really into it. Good concept of a mother not flinching during an active shooter situation. But the backstory behind it, I got into a third of the book, but there's big flashback that was just really slow. Took me out of the story. I tried to force myself to get past this, but I couldn't. When I flipped through my physical copy to find out how many pages there were left, I saw that there was more flashback chunks, so I had to put it down. I also feel that Karen Slaughter's prose is a bit wordy and indulgent. Silence of Bones by June Her is a Korean author, period piece mystery. I got into 30-35 pages. Tried this one on audiobook. Excellent setting and world building. Characters weren't too well developed. I disliked the dropping of flashbacks in the middle of scenes, awkward placement, and a little bit of wokeness in there. Because, you know, back in the day, women were not treated very well, and she's like bossing people around, so not realistic. Moon of the Crusted Snow. I got 3 hours out of a 9-hour audiobook. The equivalent of about 100 pages, I'd say. It's supposed to be about a native reservation that gets plunged into darkness after the power goes out, and a slow creeping descent into horror. But it was really slow, I couldn't get into it. It's only 263 pages long, but I'm over a third of the way and nothing happened yet. Bad pacing. I might pick up this one again and try it again physically because it's very short. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V. Schwab. I got about half an hour into the audiobook. I couldn't get into it. They started a really long flashback and I zoned out. I might try it again eventually. The Light Brigade, same thing. This one's by Cameron Hurley. It's about people going into the, they basically interstellar travel to a war. And a lot of corporate jargon that kind of made me zone out, so I couldn't get into it at the beginning. I might try this one again too. I own it physically. And the last DNF of the year was The Iron Widow by Ziran J. Chu. 3 hours into a 12-hour audiobook. This is like a mix of Poppy War and Pacific Rim. However, the world building was really shy. Characters were the very bare minimum. The culture of the sexism was pushed too much to the front. Not enough emphasis on story or anything. Seemed to be very into the chosen one trope. And I'm not like other girls trope. Too many cliches. I mainly stopped due to the quote, "Welcome to your nightmare," which she screams and no one can hear her. It's impossible to take a main character seriously unless they're Freddy Krueger when they say this. So those are the 23 books that I DNF'd of 2021. I will try, there's a couple in there I'll try again, but there's quite a bit. I forgot one called Far From the Light of Heaven by Tade Thompson. This one I tried to listen to an audiobook. Starts off with a ship crisis and they hop to another character on a planet with a flashback. Didn't quite like that, so I think I just dropped it, but I might check out this one again. That concludes our DNF list.